With regards to the article you're referring to in the Ngami Times, I don't recall seeing it, but I understand the point that you're trying to make. It's not that government wishes to deter self-drives. Government needs to regulate self-drive. And to regulate them means that obviously the numbers in some cases will not be able to grow. The reason being there is that self-drive operators tend to, and I'll be honest here, tend to, in a lot of cases, disobey various rules that would be set in parks. They tend to camp where they want, and as I say, these may be exceptions to the rule. But I think the most important factor that we have to look at self-drive is that when you talk about a game reserve like the Chobe Game Reserve, like the Moremi Game Reserve, you talk about an area that cannot sustain thousands of self-drive vehicles at any given time. And I go back to your question on the environment, in that with limited space, and if you have unlimited self-drive, there will come a point where not only will they be disturbing the habitat of the wildlife, but they would be destroying that very same environment that they came to observe. Now, I understand your question with regards to the residents of Maun or residents of other villages who feel that they would be deprived of income that they may have spent, be it on fuel, hotel, or whatever. But I think that also, at the end of the day, if you had to not regulate the amount of people or self-drive in an area, it would come to an end, because you would damage an environment that you could never replace. So they would lose anyway. So I believe that there is reason to regulate the self-drive industry. With regard to mobile safaris that they may be banned, I wouldn't like, and I don't have to comment, I don't have an answer on that. I doubt whether mobile safaris are going to be banned. I think it's like any activity. There needs to be regulation. You have some very successful mobile safaris at the moment, and I see no reason why they would be stopped completely. But once again, they would have to be regulated. You can't have 300 or 400 mobile safaris all taking place at one time. Once again, you're talking about the environment. With the downturn, is Botswana still seeking the same market, the same high-end market? Yes, it is. Obviously, tour operators would have to take that into consideration, and some may or may not have to reduce their costs given the state of the recession. But it would be pointless to have a policy of low volume and then increase the volume purely because it's a recession, because the damage at the end of the day would be untold. Your next question about fencing the Kalahari affect the wildebeest migration. It depends what type of fencing you're talking about. I don't know particularly which fences you're referring to. Botswana has numerous fences all over the country. Where there are migratory routes, obviously we take into consideration various migratory patterns and allow those migratory patterns to continue. However, I should mention that when you talk about fences, many years ago, when the buffalo fence was erected, the environmentalists really were alarmed by the erection of those fences. They now comment on them because they realize that those same fences have protected a huge number of wildlife, particularly buffalo, because it stops cattle from going into those areas. Other fences are there purely for disease control, which in itself also affects wild animals. But not knowing exactly which fence you're referring to, because the Kalahari is a vast area, so I'm not quite too sure which one you're talking about. But I can assure you that my government, where possible, does ensure that they take into consideration any issues with regards to environment. Has Botswana felt the effects of more tourism due to the World Cup? Most probably not. Most probably not, for the simple reason that we will get the exposure. There's no doubt about that. We're very close to South Africa. So yes, in regards to exposure, obviously we will see the effects. On whether the numbers will increase, it's a catch-22 situation, and I think what we should understand is that with 2010 taking place, everybody wants to go to South Africa. And everybody, I mean soccer fans, fans of teams. And what has resulted is that very few people are able to get flights to South Africa. And remember that Johannesburg is really the hub, apart from one or two other airports, to Botswana. So not only is airfare very expensive during the tournament, but it also will limit the number of people who would want to travel on tourism activities. So as I say, it's a catch-22 situation. Has cattle ranching affected the sand bushmen and the water levels on which they are dependent? My answer there is no. The water levels are affected by the rain pattern. Obviously, usage does lower the water level, but then that would be replenished. Secondly, has it affected the sand bushmen? The sand bushmen don't use boreholes or water that would be drilled from aquifers, because they don't have that type of technology. And if they live a hunter-gatherer existence, they don't use borehole. Surface water, there is no surface water in the Kalahari, with the exception of when it rains, and that would be there for a few weeks or a few days or a few months. So I don't see the connection between boreholes, which would come from aquifers, and the sand people. And secondly, the sand people are scattered over the whole of Botswana. They're not only within the Central Kalahari Game Reserve. So the question there is no, I don't see how that has affected the water level.